The Ward Scott Files is produced by Ward Scott Files, LLC.
Come on, everybody. Come on, everybody.
This is a Ward Scott Files advisory. The Ward Scott Files radio show may contain material not suited for people who are easily offended. Trust us on this. This show contains adult information and opinions. Please protect small children, sensitive pets, fragile houseplants, and liberal relatives. Thank you. And now it's time for Coach Hogg's Locker Room.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Here we are right now, assuming the persona of Coach Hogg here in the Coach Hogg's Locker Room, which actually is the man cave, nice and secure here at an undisclosed location from which we broadcast our provocative comments intended to get you out of the box of rocks so that you just won't be sitting on the sidelines. You'll be participating and a little more informed than you would have if you were getting your news from the general news sources, which are very superficial and lack depth and maturity. Okay, here we go in Coach Hogg's Locker Room. Let's go right straight to basketball. And a couple of things that are interesting, of course, is the big Final Four deal with Texas Tech and the University of Virginia, and some thrilling games also I want to talk about over in the finals between Baylor and Notre Dame, or Our Lady. And that was a thrilling game with Baylor. And these games have been well matched right down to the end. And I think what I have found, what I've discovered, is that really women's basketball is wonderfully supported by the minorities. I see the minority families come out, to people of color, if you will, come out from these schools and really root and support these players that are on these women's basketball teams, which I think is very encouraging. And I know that exists also on the men's side, but it seems to be especially noticeable on the women's side. And these women have really become players. Once upon a time when I was a youngin', we had the women play and they stopped at half court and pitched the ball to the offensive group on the other side. And then the offensive group pitched the ball to the defensive group, the whole deal. And it was reasoned improperly, of course, but I suppose scientifically at the time that the women just didn't have the stamina and the strength and all to conduct the game the way full court the men did. And it was always really strange. I mean, you know, I played basketball and we ran full court and all that. And now, of course, the women are doing the whole thing. So if you missed that game, that was an exciting game. It's very much supported by families. The coaches are very astute and on the ball. And then, of course, we have the male version of this coming up tonight. And the Auburn game was really something. A couple of things here and there changed the pace. That's how close it is. But the thing I want to talk about today is Calipari from Kentucky. You know, Adolph Rupp was the powerhouse of Kentucky basketball for so long, and he had the whole world, sort of like Bud Wilkerson did in Oklahoma football. You just couldn't defeat these guys, and they kept running up victories after victories, and of course the winners get to winners and all that. And then it was a difficult time replacing Adolph Rupp when he finally retired, and over the time, they finally, Kentucky did, and went to Memphis and got Calipari, who now has been, he's been involved in a bidding war between UCLA and Kentucky has offered him basically a lifetime contract. And the way that would work is he would get, this is from the Athletics' Seth Davis, this would be in the smoke room, this would be a lifetime contract, and the new deal would reportedly be a 10-year contract as a head coach, but then after that, he would have the opportunity to serve as a paid ambassador. And I guess the old HBC, the head ball coach, Steve Spurrier here, is the one who kind of has created that, because Steve is a lifetime ambassador for the University of Florida, and rightfully so. And now it looks as if this ambassadorship type thing is going to be offered to Calipari if he decides to stay at Kentucky for the next 10 years. And it's so competitive, it's not necessarily a shoe-in the way it was when Calipari was just coming there and building the program up. Of course, you know, it's a lot more parity now for a lot of different reasons, but this is kind of an interesting thing that I wanted to report to you, that he is being offered a lifetime deal, and it probably will come to fruition. I would expect it would. Who would turn that down? I mean, you know, to go out, maybe, though, he likes challenges of building programs, so we can't really be too much premature about that. I think one of the most interesting stories to cover right now, though, is Coach Tuberville out of Auburn. I don't know if you all remember him or not. We certainly do here in Gatorland. And Coach Tuberville was another one of the Auburn coaches that had his tenure there. But now what he's doing, and I think this is worth noting, that's why I've got it in the Coach Hogg's locker room, the Daily Caller reports that Tommy Tuberville is going to run for the Alabama Senate in 2020. He is conservative. He's a Republican. He will be a GOP candidate for the U.S. Senate. And, boy, I mean, we'll welcome that. I mean, you know, I'd like that. You know, I mean, now some coaches don't want to get involved in politically, like Steve Spurrier. He's absolutely boring about politics. He doesn't want to be anywhere near it. He wants arm's length from it. But Tuberville apparently is the opposite. He wants to get into it and take advantage of the fact that he has name recognition and that he is a conservative guy, and he's been, you know, he can get his point across. So he'll be a GOP candidate for the U.S. Senate, and that's something I would hope will come to a successful completion. You know, it's something that you know, not all, as I say, not all coaches do, but he is, you know, he's got the charisma, I suppose, and he's got the ability to get out there and you know, make that happen and get people involved and raise money. And he's got, certainly, as I say, certainly got name recognition. So what else can you want? I mean, it's probably a good deal. And I don't know, they'll probably try to smear all these Republican candidates. I wouldn't think that'd be an easy thing to do, but I'm just trying to pull up the whole thing. He will run against Democratic Senator Doug Jones, and Sean Spicer, who was President Donald Trump's former press secretary, will work on Tuberville's campaign. So Tuberville has got connections right straight to the Trumpster, and we'll see how he does. But this isn't the first time. He's 64 years old that he has considered jumping into politics, and he even considered at one point running for the Alabama governor in 2018. Well, that's really the main things I wanted to draw your attention to going on that Coach Hogg is keeping an eye on. And one is that his coaches becoming politicians. Some of them are doing okay with it, I suppose. Some of them don't want anything to do with it, and others, you know, welcome it and probably can bring something successful to the venture. So the game tonight you'll catch Virginia and Texas Tech. It probably will be a pretty close game. They'll each have their own fan base and all that kind of business. I want to switch to something locally that kind of bothers me, and I think Jay's going to throw this up on the screen here in a minute. It has to do with an article that came out by the Birkenstock writer. We tease her. She wears the Birkenstock. She's generally known to be a lefty. And is the graph that came out of a front page Gainesville Sun article about cannabis. And, of course, this whole cannabis thing locally was started by Captain Planet, who probably has, you know, had his tokes over the line too, I imagine. And, you know, wants to decriminalize. He started all this at one point. We covered it pretty closely on the radio, how he challenged the sheriff to stop arresting people. And the sheriff said, I can't, it's a law, and this, that, wing, and another. So this whole thing has developed into kind of a complaint, and they've turned it into a race card. Now, here's what my take on this is, and hopefully you can see that chart there. My take on this is that it's pretty clear what minority, what group, what culture is using marijuana more than, from that graph, if we're to assume that that's the correct figures there, what group is using it the most, and that, of course, and by the token of the rest from the various police agencies. Now, what struck me about this was, you know, now listen, I came up in the 60s, okay? So I'm no newcomer to all this stuff. I've been around this stuff for a long, long time. And let me tell you my personal opinion about the nasty marijuana, if you want to, you know, joke around and call it that. You can't get a damn thing done on it. That's the whole purpose of it. You know, it is to mellow you out. Oh, one more toke over the line, and you know who's wine, what wine, where did I dine, and all this stuff. It is made to produce you into passivity. And lots of people, and you know, great music, and it's that one and another. It is not made to go to work. I mean, I know there are people who will say, well, I can drive while I'm stoned, and, you know, so be it. But I'm not one of those who believes that. First of all, I don't agree with smoking, period. And then, of course, I know there's other ways to ingest the THC, and you can do it through the cookies and all this stuff and that crap that they do out in Colorado. But I just don't think that this is This is a weed. It's a weed. It grew, I think it was once upon a time called loco weed. A lot of these things, of course, are natural. The cocoa plant is the cocaine. Peyote is a cactus. Ken Kesey told me he wrote The Opening to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, high on peyote. Psilocybin is a mushroom. Technicolored dreams, all that kind of business. But it all is rendered to alter your state of reality, and I don't think it's conducive to productivity. So to in any way for a society to encourage this activity, by the way, e-cigarettes are not encouraged. The age for smoking cigarettes is down. They want to go up on that. It doesn't deter, though. If you take a look at, oh my God, I can't believe the price of a pack of cigarettes. It doesn't stop them. How many times have you driven by the hospital and looked at all the hospital workers out at the back door smoking stinkerettes? I mean, it's amazing. They can't kick it. So I'm not for smoking in any way, shape, or form. I'm particularly against the chewing forms of things because I think that makes you stupid. But if you look at this chart, it is no question if this is the truth that now they'll say it's racist that the black culture is using the heck out of the stuff, okay, and the whites to some extent. Hispanics almost not at all, and they grow it, okay. The original stuff came out of Colombia. That came into Gainesville called Colombia Gold. And it was pretty powerful. And then it started coming from Mexico, and then guys around here got onto it and created Gainesville Green. So, and there was a lot of money made by people who are right now pillars of the society who've never been captured. And I don't want to get into all that, but that's the way it was. So I understand the questions about legality and all. But what I am amazed at here, this is the thing that drew my attention to this, is that the Asians, who are the most productive culture of all on the planet, all right? They are actually discriminated against at Harvard for being too good. And so they've actually bumped the Asians from admissions in Harvard so that they can enter people of color from the black culture in the seats that the Asians would have taken. And we covered that here on the show. This has already been investigated by people who've taken a look at admissions and how they work and how they function. And I can tell you that when you go out to our brain bowl at the college, it was almost all Asians, maybe an Indian person there, but we didn't have any. Our kids thought that to be on the brain bowl was too much extra work. The Asian kids just jumped all over it. As I said, keeping track of the statistics on the labs out there where you could get free tutorial help, we couldn't get the black male into it if we offered a year's supply of marijuana. We couldn't keep the Asian out. So I thought it was interesting to look at these. I don't even know if that, I don't think that even appears in the article. I don't think there's any mention of in the article. It's all about race, you see, and Captain Planet, and they've turned this into race and how discriminatory this is again. Why does a black culture use it in the first place? I mean, come on. You've already got a bad image for not wanting to work and not wanting to become a productive member of the society, and then you go to pot. I mean, why do the people encourage? But I know why. It is a source of income in the black culture. It is peddled all over the place, and that is the way these guys make their gang stripes and all that stuff. I understand that. But where are the leaders in the black culture, the spiritual leaders that can come on and say, come on, get back to school and get back to getting some of the qualities of the Asian, which is very strongly family-oriented, very strongly academically oriented, and it's indicated by this particular graph here, if we're to trust the Birkenstock writer, whom I don't even think knew that information was in there. But it really raises significant questions about why even the Hispanics rank low, but the Asians almost don't exist on that graph. Now, what are they doing? Well, they're off doing something productive. And why are you doing something that's not productive if you're already lagging up behind the rear in a doggone culture, and you've already besmirched your culture by getting listen, I'm going to get into Chicago shootings in a minute. It's going to blow your mind. I mean, and nobody seems to be able to get a handle on it. So this is my question. I wanted to put that up there. It was something that bothered me a great deal, that, why isn't that the lesson to be taken from this article, rather than the lesson is, oh, woe is me, you're arresting too many minorities for smoking pot. Why do we not just have them not smoke? Why do we encourage them to smoke the pot in the first place, huh? It makes no sense whatsoever. And I fault the lack of, and that's a good quip there, Jay, put that up. Yeah, that's Jay's creation. Asians don't do dope. Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, what's going on here? So I wanted to throw that up there. As I say, I don't even think that even appears as a question in the article. It's because it's not what they're looking for in the research. You see, this is the problem with research. The research is only as good as open-minded as you are when you do it and you look for results and you don't have a preconceived opinion going into it. Well, here, obviously, they have a preconceived opinion going into it. Just to cover this Chicago shooting thing, since it's right at the top of my email list here, and I'll run this right on the rear end of this thing locally. And it has something to do with the weather, they think. This Chicago Tribune says this is the first warm weekend they had in Chicago in quite a while, and they had 24 shot in 30 hours, okay? Now, this is on the heels of Fox being let loose, of Smollett being let loose and Fox throwing it all under the bridge. In a little over, according to the Chicago Tribune, in a little over 24 hours this weekend, 24 people were shot in Chicago, including 3 children under 13, and 3 of the adults shot died from their injuries. Now, beginning at 4 a.m. Saturday, according to the Tribune, through about 10 a.m. Sunday, Chicago police were investigating shooting cases that included the homicides and a mass shooting of 6 people outside an afternoon baby shower in West Englewood, in which an 8-year-old boy was shot in the chest and back, and a 10-year-old girl was struck in the shin. Come on. Now, 3 people were shot in East Garfield Park about 3:30 a.m. Sunday as they stood outside the 3900 block of West Wilcox Street. Notice all this stuff's on the west side. A 34-year-old was taken to Mount Sinai Hospital with a gunshot wound to the right leg. A 26-year-old was taken to a Norwegian American hospital with a gunshot wound to his right foot. And a 33-year-old was taken to the Rush University Medical Center for a gunshot wound to his left arm. Now, 2 of the 3 homicide investigations were launched Sunday morning, and this is a police force that's under siege by the state attorney's office and being called racist for arresting these guys. I suppose also if you went and took a look at the pot distribution over there, you'd find it off the chart. So this is all over the place. Here's another guy, 52, had a gunshot wound to the head. He was pronounced dead at the scene. It is going on, and nobody can get a handle on it. There was a teenager who was shot to death Saturday afternoon in the 1700 block of West Steuben Street in Morgan Park. That incident also wounded a 22-year-old. Where do we go with all this stuff? So, and it increases the violence, and this is just the beginning of it, increases, according to the Chicago police, during the summer months. The cold weather kind of keeps them inside, but once it opens up, there's more social gatherings, and these social gatherings are a place that lead to sitting ducks to be fired upon, and there you are. And they don't mind killing kids. I mean, it is a really amazing story that doesn't get proper attention. Now, I wanted to switch to that for a minute on the heels of this cannabis count here in by police arrests and the accusation that if you arrest somebody for cannabis, you're a racist, and that's done by good old Captain Planet, Robert Carl Marx Hutchison, whose brain I don't think has been properly examined now for quite a while. I just don't put much trust in his judgment at all. He's not, he's way over his head in intellectual comments. We've got a local deal here that we've been covering that, of course, has had perhaps a ironically happy ending. Gillum, we keep a close eye on this dude because he is almost became the doggone governor, if you can believe it. Now, and his campaign ended up with $4 million in the bank while he lost by 40,000 votes, and that's kind of weird. But what's really also kind of strange is the fact that there is a gift out of that PAC that he has to the local Democrat Party of $5,000 to the Democrat Party here. And, you know, there are 67 chairs of the Democrat parties in the state. And this is the only one who got $5,000 from, guess who? Andrew Gillum's PAC. So I don't think you'll see that. Maybe you'll see that in the news. I don't know. I think we fed that over to Andrew Kaplan, but I don't know if the editors will take the foot off the throat long enough for him to talk about that. But that's the statistics as we got them. It's curious what's going on here. There's an awful lot of chatter going on out on the emails things, which we monitor among the city commissioners, and we monitor the email of the city commissioners. And one of the things that's been said there is, quite appropriately, had we not drawn attention to this and the public outrage, would he have given, you know, back the money, so to speak? And also, the next thing we want to know is he going to, Andrew Gillum, going to be taxed if he takes the money and then gives it? Well, he's going to be taxed on it. Now, one of the things we were pleasantly surprised to learn was that Dr. Jackson Sasser did not take a fee and also made a $1,000 contribution out of the foundation. That made some sense. We were very pleasantly relieved to see that. We thought, oh my golly, if he's taking a fee too, there really is something wrong here. But Gillum stands out as a guy who took the fee. Some of them took travel expenses. A couple of the black people, one an astronaut and another a kind of cocaine success story. Those people took money and travel fees. But the question is, why does it have to be, and Belarski has a comment here, well, he's so proud of this, and you get these guys, and it helps. Why does it have to be a minority speaker to encourage minorities to do something with themselves? It's always been a mystery to me why you have to do that. I mean, I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody, maybe other than Belarski, who seems to have been on his own with this. Even some of the commissioners didn't know this use of their fees, utility fees, was going to this. And by the way, nobody who pays these fees gets a choice in the matter, because, you know, you're a prisoner of GRU. But Lauren Poe really is, he's a work of art. He says, you know, he really thinks this is the way it should go. I mean, of course, he gave the maximum money to Gillum, and Gillum gave the maximum money to him, and now there's money given to the Democrat Party. So something has raised its ugly head here, and, you know, people are entitled to know, since there's no choice if they use the Gainesville Regional Utilities. So I wanted to cover that story a little bit with you. We also we can go look at the Commissioner Mail Archive. We know Poe's response is that, oh, this is just great. This is the way, you know, it should be. But the people are onto it now, and it's pretty clear that the decision is being made sort of, even though they quote unquote say it was transparent, really not being made in a public way, and the public's now kind of upset about it. In this case, it did catch Gillum. Gillum has still got an ethics thing coming up, and we'll see how that works out. And, you know, hopefully there'll be some teeth to the ethics things. I'm not completely convinced of it. Meanwhile, the black culture deal is so apparently important to Curry's favor that we have we have our Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez talking in, I guess, ebonics. Have you got that thing we can play? Okay, we're going to listen to this. This is how she talks when she goes out and hangs out with Al Sharpton, who's just a bum.
This is what organizing looks like.
Right.
This is what building power looks like. This is what changing the country looks like. It's when we choose to show up and occupy the room and talk about the things that matter most, talking about our future. You know, Reverend, you bring up a funny anecdote, and I'm proud to be a bartender. Ain't nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with working retail, folding clothes for other people to buy. There is nothing wrong with preparing the food that your neighbors will eat. There is nothing wrong with driving the buses that take your family to work.
Well, bless her heart. Ain't nothing wrong, you know. Boy, I tell you what, you know, get down, girl. And you can hear it's like church always when you go to these gatherings. I've been to many of them. And you get the hallelujah, amen, carry on, girl. You know, she's into that rhythm. It's an infectious rhythm. I mean, I think it's very effective, and I think it's, you know, when I first went to Archer to be the city manager, I found out that's the way the Archer Commission conducted itself. It's like it was a black church. I mean, you'd be sitting up there at the dais, and somebody would, one of the commissioners in a sober comment would, and somebody out in the audience just holler, "Yeah, pray it on, baby." And, you know, it was so disruptive that I had those people removed. I said, you know, let's not mix the two forums here. If you want to conduct that, your behavior that way on Sunday, that's fine, but we don't need you conducting that way in City Hall. And, you know, it took a little while. Of course, I was called right away a racist, but, you know, that's the way you have to have. You have to have some order. If, you know, I was in the classroom. I maintained order for 40 years in a classroom, plus I went to military school. And, you know, we wouldn't pull that stuff in military school. And whenever you're in a classroom, you can't have somebody shouting out in the middle of whatnot. You know, this is a moment when you use your head, not your emotions. So anyway, there she is. She's doing all that, and she's really pushing the envelope there and trying to get in good with, of all people, the old Reverend Al. I've met Reverend Al. He came out here to the Martin Luther King Center on Waldo Road one time, and he was surrounded by heavy, glowering black bodyguards that were nasty-looking guys. That's how open he feels he is, right? I mean, how if he weren't that way. How about the one with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez talking with her mouth stuffed with popcorn? Do we have that one? Oh, we got this one too. This is a great one. She tells us how the world works in this one.
Would you support a female draft? So long as we have a draft, I support people of all genders being drafted. Equality.
Is that as much as that? No, well, golly, there was more of it than that. I saw more of it. She is really carrying on there. The whole time she's stuffing her mouth, making a selfie, I guess. I don't know what to do with this child, but there she is. And who knows how this is going to influence ultimately the Democrat Party, because some of the Democrats are trying to run to the other side of the ship from her and not be on her side, fear it'll list and they'll tip over in the water and won't be able to write the capsizing. But, you know, she's got the hysterical mindset of that which is in academia. That's where she learned all this stuff. She dragged it right out of academia, and she's brought it right into the political scene. And of course, it's an absolute dream for the press to cover that. This, boy, imagine they get all kinds of mileage out of this. But some of the serious things that are on here's some of the serious things to consider, and this is actually being kicked around. And the Daily Caller. Here's what we're going to do. Here's where each candidate, each 2020 Democrat candidate stands on slavery reparations. See, it's not just Ocasio going down there and drifting in the ebonics. You know, that's one thing. But what they're really doing is they're trying to peddle and curry the favor of the black culture, which is the one that uses the pot the most, by the way. I hope you understand that. As to whether, you know, they can get their favor by saying, well, you know, we might as well pay you since you never were owned by anybody and you never picked your own cotton or anything like that. But by golly, somebody must have, and so you need some money come from some of those people. And let me see if I can get this straight. We're going to take young man Jay back here. He works, he makes income, pays taxes and all that. We're going to take some of his money and give it to some guy down here driving down the road, one more token him over the line, who's not going to school, who you know, has busted out and been in the jug several times. We're going to hand him a check. And the reason we're going to hand him a check is because he must be that way because Jay's ancestors did it, you know? Now, come on, that's the logic. That's the logic. So virtually every presidential candidate who spoke at this Al Sharpton thing where we saw Ocasio drift into ebonics was asked by the civil rights activists if they support slavery reparations, and to a person, every one of those candidates said yes. Now I know the politicians are absolutely spineless, untrustworthy. They really are the most untrustworthy group of people I've ever been around, and they say. I mean, there's occasionally one of maybe started out with a decent value system, but sooner or later it gets corrupted. But Sharpton specifically wanted to know if these candidates from the Democrat Party who came to this forum here that Ocasio drifted into ebonics on, if they supported H.R. 40, which is a bill originally introduced by former Democrat Michigan Rep. John Conyers in 1989 and reintroduced by Democrat Texas Representative Sheila Jackson Lee this year, that would create a, quote, here's what they want, a commission to, now Captain Planet here, one more token row over the line, Robert Karl Marx Hutchison, has proposed the same thing. He's got an elaborate deal all cooked up, and I don't know where it is in the process around here in Alachua County, but it's all cooked up, involves ultimately winding up on a plaque in some courtyard somewhere saying you cleansed your soul by doing this. But the commission to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans to examine slavery and discrimination in the colonies of the United States from 1619 to the present, and recommend appropriate remedies. Appropriate remedies. I can tell you what the first appropriate remedy would be, is get a job and get off the pot, right? And stick with your family and go back and imitate the Asians, for crying out loud. If you want to know the blueprint for success, imitate the Asians. Why would you languish in your own muck? I don't get it. So now we're going to go back to 1619. It's impossible. It's crazy. But why are they doing this? Now, they all were asked this question by this lunatic Sharpton, all right? Now, this guy is really not all there. And you know, the ones who answered in affirmative were Beto O'Rourke, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren, Kamala was in there too, my man. She, you know, the one who slept her way to the bottom with Willie Jones, and his name, Willie Brown, out there as the mayor of San Francisco, who was an adulteress with him. And, you know, got away scot-free with it. It's nothing, no big deal. Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper, where pot is legal. Former Maryland Rep. John Delaney, South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg. They all gave their, you know, I mean, you can go through this as Daily Caller. They've summarized what they said. Here's what O'Rourke said. Well, we need a foundation. We need a foundation, and the word reparations is the word repair, okay? So we need this foundation to repair. Oh, my golly. Sanders, he says, well, a little more reserved. It needed to be studied, but let me say this. I think what we need to do, he says, is to pay real attention to the most distressed communities in America. We have got to use 10% of all federal funds to make sure that kids who need it get the, now here we go, Jay. 10% of your paycheck is going to go, come on, brother, is going to go to doing what? Righting the wrong. Kamala Harris, get her, now get her. We have got to recognize, back to that earlier point, people aren't starting out on the same base in terms of their ability to succeed. Is she nuts? I mean, who said you start on the same base? Do you think Michael Jordan, I could compete with Michael Jordan? Come on. Let me tell you, when you generalize, you go into abstraction, and abstraction kills everything. Always stick with specifics. These people are skimming the surface of thinking. And what's so shameful is they're out there in these national forums talking to people that you would think had a mind, all right? So she says, this is what Kamala Harris said, who slept her way to the bottom. When I am elected president, I will sign that bill, H.R. 40. Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren. I believe it's time to start the national full-blown conversation about reparations in this country. Oh, God. And that means I support the bill in the House to appoint a Congress. If you don't think it is important, friends, to get out and vote and change that House back to Republican, this is what you got coming, all right? I believe it's time to start the national full-blown conversation about reparations in this country. And that means I support the bill in the House to appoint a congressional panel of experts. Now, who is that panel of experts going to be? I want to know. Who is the panel of experts going to be? Huh? People who are studying this and talk about this in different ways. We've got to get back to Congress, and then we got to, as a nation, begin to heal. Are you kidding me? Kristen Gillibrand. I firmly support Congresswoman Jackson Lee's bill to create a commission to study reparations. As president, I would advocate Congress to pass that bill, and I would sign that bill into law. This is the first step that 100 years of slavery and institutional racism have caused mass inequity and harm to black people and has held black communities back for generations from achieving their full potential. Where did she get this stuff? Where did she get this stuff? They ain't held the Asians back. They ain't held the Asians back. We've been at war with those people. I mean, literal war. Literal war. Sickening. Come on. Listen, I have a friend who is Japanese, who is a wonderful lady. I'm not going to tell you her name. Very attractive lady. Very successful. Very successful. I interviewed her on the radio a few years ago, and I asked her, you know, how did you get your values and all that stuff? And she says, you know where I got them? She says, my grandparents were in a Japanese internment camp. And she says, people like to think these things were negative. She says, let me tell you what my grandparents learned to do. They learned agriculture. That's what they did. Yes, they were in a compound there during World War II because they were Japanese. But I'll tell you what they did and what they learned and how they applied themselves and how they made that a positive experience is why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. And this was an extremely successful person. Why doesn't this Amy Klobuchar get her head cleansed out and listen to somebody like that? Because they're speaking to a lowlife who's never paid his taxes, Al Sharpton, all right? John Hickenlooper, the former governor. Slavery is a nagging, unrelenting shame of America. It is if you keep looking at it that way. If you keep looking at it that way, it is. I'm so disgusted with the rhetoric. I'm so disgusted. You know, we've got Julian Castro. Compensate people who were considered property and sanctioned by the state. They ain't none of them alive, okay? Cory Booker. Not only do I support it, but I have legislation that actually does it. Of course, he told that to none other than Communist News Network anchor Jake Tapper last month. Here is Andrew Yang. He said, I'd go further. I would put $1,000 a month in the hands of every adult starting at age 18. And then I would say this is not reparations. We need to study reparations independently of the fact that we can make this economy. Where's the $1,000 a month coming from? It's coming from you, Jay. Yeah. It goes on. You got this Tulsi Gabbard, Hawaiian congresswoman. You got, you even got this Howard Schultz, who was the Starbucks CEO. Come on. Anyway, I just got to tell you that I think that is sheer nonsense. And I think you can see it in the front page of yesterday's Gainesville Mexican mullet rapper Sun, when the Birkenstock writer wrote and put that graph up there about who got popped for reefer madness, and it is overwhelming that the blacks got popped the most. Now, of course, Karl Marx Hutchinson will claim that's because they were discriminated against in the initial popping by the GPD, but no Asians. No Asians. Oh, well. Uncle Joe Biden. What should we make of Uncle Joe Biden? Okay, that's been an article that I thought I would spend a little time with you about now. What do you make of Uncle Joe Biden? This is in Politico magazine. And so the infinite wisdom of Politico, they went out and they asked several women about Uncle Joe's style, okay? They now call it a tactile style, or the other is he's a, what was it about touch, Jay? Do you remember what it was? Natural toucher. He's a natural toucher. Boy, what a crock that is. So I'm just going to go through some of these comments, and I'm going to comment on the comments. This is from Amanda Marcotte, who is the author of It's a Jungle Out There. And It's a Jungle Out There is the feminist survival guide to politically inhospitable environments. Boy, there's a mouthful. Everybody's got a niche, Jay. You need to write a book, brother. Okay? She says that Uncle Joe Biden, who has been called the natural toucher, is a relic from a previous era when casual sexism was the norm and white male entitlement was unchallenged. Let me tell you something about this woman's head. She doesn't know the people I knew from a previous era. It was exactly the opposite. It was the age of chivalry. It was the age of opening the door for the woman. It was the age of when a woman entered the room, you as a male, you hit your feet, you were standing. What is she talking about? She has made up a past that she knows nothing of. And then, in order to make an excuse for Biden, has claimed that everybody then was like he is. When he would have been a frog out of water then, as much as he is now, if not more. So I thought that was a very stupid thing for that woman to make, that statement for that woman to make. But why was it made? Say after me, friends. It's the political language now. Now, here is something that I just go on for a few. This is I have to share it with you. New York Magazine's Rebecca Traister said, I don't necessarily blame him. His avuncular pawing. What is that? Avuncular pawing.
You know, it's funny. I read somewhere the more terms they use, the more they're trying to confuse you.
Mm-hmm. Well, his avuncular pawing just puts him out of step with the mores of an increasingly progressive Democratic Party. There you go. There you go. Deborah Dickinson is the author of An American Story and the End of Blackness, okay? Well, there you go. I mean, that right there ought to tell you something. I mean, yeah, you can. Eventually, the breeding populations will commingle enough, you will, it'll all be brown. What? Yeah, that's what William Faulkner said. That's what's happening.
I meant the end of, like, black culture, that it's okay to, shoot up people.
No, what we're talking about, skin tone. You'll all look like Halle Berry. Yeah. Or Jennifer Lopez. Y'all, that same brown tone on the breeding pop. It'll take about another 50, 60 years, okay? Now, here's something. Listen to this, Jay. I'm going to test your logic. This is a test for you, okay? Laying hands on someone without their consent, let alone their participation, was white male privilege. So I asked myself a question. Is it just exclusive to whites? Is it just exclusive to white males? What about the brothers who are over there running the women down in the rap songs with the bitches and the hoes? What is it? Why do they get a pass? Why do they get a pass? So they have created this false definition of old-timers as if old-timers were all sleazebags. Old-timers were actually, here's what's happened. There was once upon a time a very sharp demarcation, my friend Jay, between the public and the private. All right? And now there is no demarcation. The public is the private and the private is the public. And once you open that door, you have got mass confusion. Now this woman says she was a middle-aged woman. And what has that got to do with it? I know many middle-aged women who don't subscribe to this nonsense at all, who understand that, hey, it's not a general thing. Hey, if Joe Biden wasn't a creep, okay, and as I joke about this, I don't think anybody could ever accuse Elvis Presley of crossing the line, do you? Huh? I mean, the women, listen, I was in a dadgum concert here in O'Connell Center when Billy Ray Cyrus is up there singing Achy Breaky Heart, all right? Minding his own business on the stage. And the women were rushing the stage, Jay, the women. Their husbands were trying to yank them back in their seats, and they slapped their husband and charged down the thing anyway, and they were slinging their bras at, I'm serious, it's right there, slinging their bras at Billy Ray and all this. And finally, Billy Ray had to draw the line. You know when he drew the line, Jay? A woman took her wedding ring off and slung it up on the stage to Billy Ray. And Billy Ray said, honey, I got to draw the line there now. You got to take that back. Now, he was taking the bras and the panties and all the other stuff that was being slung at him, but he wasn't going to take the wedding ring. Now, see, he got scruples. But my point is, it was the women charging the stage. He wasn't going out in the audience. Huh? And by golly, that's been 20, 30 years ago whenever he was singing Achy Breaky Heart. Of course, his daughter turns out to be Miley, and boy, they done a great job of making her into a sex symbol. I guarantee it was all programmed intelligently and deliberately and purposefully by Billy Ray, who wanted to market her into something that she is, a sex pot, and they've done very well at it because he's been through all this. He sees this. So there you go. That's just a few of the comments. I mean, what about Uncle Joe? Uncle Joe is a creep, pure and simple. It doesn't matter what age he's in, where he is, who he is. I mean, and don't lump us up with Billy Ray. I mean, with Uncle Joe. So this is an attack. What this is this is an opportunity to once again attack white males, all right? And make them into the villains. And of course, the epitome of the white male villain is none other than our old buddy, guess who? Donald Trump. So there you are. I can't go through them all. I mean, I got them here. I even printed them out and underlined them. It was, I got to finish up with, Portia got a grammatical error. I'm going to teach you again today, Jay, about grammar, all right? I'm going to read this sentence to you, and you tell me if you hear the grammatical error. 1 in 5 women have been the victims of rape. All right, I'm going to stop. Did you hear the grammatical error? 1 in 5 women have been the victims of rape. No, here it is. The subject of the sentence is singular. It is one. All right? The prepositional phrase in 5 women, the object of the preposition in is women. But the verb doesn't agree with the object of the preposition. It agrees with the subject, which is one. So it should be 1 in 5 women has been the victim of rape. Now, when I see that, Jay, I see stupidity, all right? And I discount anything else they had to say. Because if you can't get the logic of communication straight, then why should I listen to anything else you say? So if you say and write 1 in 5 women have been the victims, you're stupid. It is 1 in 5 women has been the victim. Huh? Now, the same thing goes on in the next sentence. 1 in 3 to 4 live with intimate partner violence. All right, correct it. 1 in 3 to 4 lives. And you don't have to change the intimate partner, that agrees, with intimate partner violence. Okay, that's stupid, all right? That's stupid. I mean, it jumps out at me. It doesn't jump out at 99% of the people. Huh? There you are, my man. You got that right? You learned something today, didn't you? Okay, good.
Always learn something.
Yeah. So there you go. What is wrong with Uncle Joe? Uncle Joe is a creep. He was, is, and always will be. And that's no, 1 in 5 women are the victim. No, it's 1 in 5 women is the victim. Come on, Doug, don't message me that. Maybe he was picking up on what I said, one of my friends just now, picking up on that. So, of course, Trump has said, rightfully so, in his humorous way, I think it's so funny, that Uncle Joe is only a threat to himself. Uncle Joe is only a threat to himself. Well, of course he is. I mean, golly. This cast of characters that's, lining up to be the 2020 Democrat candidates, they're having their own problems, and there's some election analysis that's going on here about this to see, just exactly what the David Siders has written about this. How are they doing actually in their home area? Now, Kamala Harris, who slept her way to the bottom, has been elected 3 times to a statewide office. She got her leg up. Oh, I love these puns. Her leg up by Willie Brown, who was the mayor, who shoved her into some places where she made about $500,000 off of his relationship, his conjugal relationship as an adulteress. And she's one of the most popular politicians in California, as you might imagine. But the Public Policy Institute of California poll has said that just 38% of the state voters say she should be running for president. Isn't that interesting? Huh? So they know her. In New Jersey, only 37% of Senator Cory Booker's constituents think he would make a good president, and he's having a problem raising money. In Massachusetts, 2/3 of likely voters told the Suffolk University Political Research Center / Boston Globe poll that Senator Elizabeth Warren shouldn't even run for the White House. Huh? Shouldn't even run for the White House. Now, so when you go look and get out of the national press spotlight where they're all fawning over trying to make one of these people into something they ain't, they have the numbers are horrible. For Mayor Bill de Blasio, more than 3/4 of New Yorkers think he shouldn't run, has no business running for president. And that's according to a Quinnipiac University poll released Wednesday. They're not all that hunky-dory, The vulnerability of these candidates in their home states has really come into sharp focus here recently since this Democratic primary has intensified. So what have you got to choose from? Look at them up there. You've got, on the one end, slept her way to the bottom, Kamala Harris, along with Pocahontas Warren. And on the other end, you've got Uncle Joe Biden, with the Yang in there in the middle, all of them wanting to pay reparations, if they speak before Al Sharpton's group anyway. With O'Rourke, somewhere we had a picture of O'Rourke when he was a wild-eyed hippie. Did we lose that, or somehow? You got it? Throw that thing up there. Look at the dude. Look at the dude on the left. That's your boy O'Rourke. Huh? In the dress. Yeah, he's in a dress. Oh, golly. I don't know, friends. I don't make this stuff up. I could not make this stuff up. So this is you know, of course, the home state polls are quick to say this, are not necessarily predictive of success, but and there's a bad example of this from our point of view anyway. In late 2006, just 1/4 of Illinois voters said Barack Hussein Obama, the Muslim, should run for president in 2008. Huh? Yeah, in 2008. Yeah. So, you know, you got to take them with the proverbial grain of salt because they may not necessarily. Now, I wanted to tell you something about the Spanish and their reparations. You know, they're not being left out. This was so interesting that I thought maybe if I'd dig it out and share it with you. This was over in the Midnight Auto Yard for a while, and I didn't know if I'd get to it. But in the Washington Times, all right? And I've said before, the Spanish are the real villains in New World exploration. The British, everywhere they went, they made a pact, and you look at the Caribbean and look where they've been, and you'll see that they left something for the people they conquered, if you will. They really went more into a partnership with them. And so they left intact their institutions as models of how to govern. And you look at where the Spanish have been, and it's sheer exploitation, total exploitation, with no middle class, killing off the indigenous people. And now there has been a little kickback. As Democratic presidential candidates, they've revived this debate. Now it's happened in Mexico for slavery, and it's in the 2020 campaigns. The leftist president is bringing up to an even older grudge, sparking outrage by demanding, here we go, that Spain's king and Pope Francis officially apologize for the conquest of Mexico half a millennium ago. There you go, 500 years ago. Now the president, who is a lefty in Mexico, wants Spain and wants the Spanish foreign minister. You know, this was all done. Oh my golly, now come back and at least apologize. And this political base that this guy's currying to, that wants the apologies on demand, and so they even have the debate going on in Mexico. As I say, the exploitation of the third world by the Spanish was really criminal and villainous. There's no question. Look at the Incas, look at Peru, look at these places where things happen. I mean, you can read about it. So the Aztec Empire, which is what modern day Mexico is. Cortez coming down there with a few hundred soldiers and some priests and taking on the Aztec armies. So I don't know where you go with this stuff. I mean, what are you going to do? How you going? This is the way it works. I mean, someday, some way, somehow, history would look back on something going on right now and saying, well, you need to apologize. I've tried to figure out what you'd need to. The MAGA, that's exactly right. Jay, you're a genius. One of these days, what is it going to take? 30, 40, 50 years, Jay? Now, we're going to have to do what? Apologize for the Make America Great Again hat. Because we've got another instance. Do we have that last meltdown we can show them, Jay? We got another meltdown. Some guy got the hat yanked off his head. We got it. We're going to show it to you real quick before we take off. It's called a... Oh, yeah. Here we go.
Touch me and don't record me.
Listen.
Can you tell her not to record me? That's against
No, you just insulted me. Don't touch 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 me. I have a right not to be harassed.
Government office, I have a right.
I have a right not to be harassed. You have no reason to harass me because of my hat. It doesn't matter. You have no reason to harass me just because I'm wearing a Trump hat.
Was that a video? Did I say? Now, get the video, man. Here it is. Get the video up there.
I
Yeah.
didn't harass her.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
I saw it. Did I say anything?
Yes, you did. You have no reason to harass me.
Where is the supervisor?
He is the president of America, and I should wear whatever I want.
Where is your supervisor?
Now I'm gonna call the cops.
Exactly. Do not harass me because of my hat.
Call the cops.
I don't care if you don't agree with it. I have the right to wear it.
There you go, brother. Yeah. There we go. I suppose maybe, how many years now? 30, 40, 50, we're going to have to all come back and Mexican with a Trump hat gets harassed by psycho-liberal. I guess that's about right. Listen, we don't create the news. We just put it together for you in a narrative that you can get involved with. And don't be a rocks or rocks. Stay out of that box of rocks. Get yourself a little bit more enlightened. Learn your grammar, by the way. Know that difference between the subject-verb agreement when you have a prepositional phrase between the subject and the verb. It has a plural object of the preposition. I think you can handle that. That'll be on the quiz tomorrow. Warthog Command Center out.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
Do you want to put your business in front of 10,000 new customers? Visit wardscottfiles.tv today for more information on our advertising opportunities.